This is my blindfolded solving journey.
And a sponsorship announcement.
Where I went from this to this. April 2020. Australia went into lockdown from COVID-19.
And Australian cities could be placed into lockdown.
I was stuck at home all day every day, and normal cubing with my eyes open had become too repetitive, and so I decided to try blindfolded solving. Not long before this, my dad had learnt how to blind solve. While he was learning, I gained a basic understanding of how the beginner method worked, and so I thought it would be a good idea to learn a Roscoe as my first method, and then try and get a success with that, instead of just trying to get a success with Old Pochman, the beginner method, and I paid the price. It took me many weeks to learn the method, and it took me 19 attempts at a solve in order to get my first success. My first success, however, was quite fast, at 5 minutes and 13 seconds. Due to the fact that I already knew a method that could get to be pretty quick, I soon started getting times in the 4 minutes, then 3, then 2, and even 1s. Grinding solves became so fun as I was improving so quickly. Once the lockdown restrictions had lifted, a competition with 3-blind was announced. Brisbane is back on 2021, and I set myself the goal of using 3-style at this competition. I learned 3-style from JPerm, although not in the way that you would expect. I learned how commutators work from JPerm, but I didn't worry too much about the way that he groups them. Then I filled in my own sheet with comms that I came up with myself, as well as from a variety of other people's sheets. I'm planning on making a more in-detail video on how you should learn 3-style soon, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. While I was learning 3-style, I hopped on a video call with Jack Kai.
Hey, what's up? It's Jack. Hey, what's up? It's Jack.
He recommended that I try and finish 3-style as quickly as possible, and then do tons of solves to get as comfortable as possible with it. This is something that I did at heaps throughout my journey. I learned something as fast as possible, and then practiced it so much. I like to think of it as seasons, a learning season, and then a practice season. In the learning season, you have to go as hard as you can to learn it quickly, and then in practice season, you have to do some reviewing alongside lots of solves. Whoa, hello there. Did you know that nearly all of the cubes in this video were bought from Daily Puzzles? Even the ones from back in 2020, which was 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, I've saved over $120 by using discount codes. And you guys can do the same. If you use discount code SWIFTCUBING at checkout at dailypuzzles.com.au, then you can get 5% off your order, and it also goes a long way in helping out my cubing journey. I would like to say a massive thanks to Daily Puzzles for sponsoring me, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future. Anyways, back to 2021. After finishing learning 3-style, I quickly grinded down to around a 40-ish second global, although my success rate wasn't very good at all. The competition that I was about to attend had 2 rounds, so the game plan was just to make it through the first round with a safety solve, and then go all out in finals. I ended up getting a 45-second solve in round 1, and in finals, you'll never guess what happened. I triple DNF'd. I wasn't too bummed about this though, as I kind of expected it. I was still getting used to 3-style, and so it was really easy to make mistakes, and also forget what the memorization was, due to the fact that I had to spend more brain power on remembering the algorithms as opposed to remembering the memo. I also just used this as motivation to try and do as good as possible at another competition, which was in 3 months' time. Please Be Quiet Brisbane 2021. Between these competitions, I just kept on doing solves in order to get used to 3-style. I managed to get down to averaging in the low 30s. My game plan for this competition was again just to safety solves to make it through the rounds, and then go all out in finals. And that's exactly what I did, but only just. In the first round, I DNF'd the first 2 solves, meaning that if I got a DNF on the third, I would have been out of the competition. But luckily, I kept my cool and managed to squeeze out a 50, which was good enough for the next round. In the second round, I got a 45, which meant that I could compete in the finals. And in the finals, I got, well, you'll see. I DNF'd a 28 because I did one commutator wrong. I had also DNF'd the other 2 solves, which made this even more painful. 2 competitions in a row, I had triple DNF'd in the finals. May 2021. I found myself lying in the hospital bed with an injury that would majorly interrupt my intentions of getting faster, a broken finger. I had broken my left pinky finger, and this would keep me out of cubing for 7 whole weeks. This was devastating, demotivating, and ultimately led to me forgetting a large portion of 3-star. I was shattered. All my hard work in the previous months had all gone to waste. 7 long weeks later, when my finger had finally healed, the unexpected happened. I broke another finger. This time, it was the tip of my right index finger, which is probably the most important finger for speedcubing. This kept me out of cubing for 5 weeks, which was long enough for me to forget the rest of 3-style. I had skyrocketed to averaging over 1 minute. But then, Australian Nationals was announced at the Gold Coast, which is really close to where I live. This finally gave me the motivation that I needed to get back on the grind. Until it got cancelled. COVID, the same thing that made me start blind in the first place, had come back to cancel Nationals in my home state. I continued to not practice much at all for the coming months. I was stuck in a downward spiral. But then, COVID restrictions once again had lifted, and there was a competition with 3-blind announced near me. Maybe this time it would be the motivation that I needed to pick up 3-blind once again. And so I spent the 3 months leading up to this comp slowly relearning 3-style and reviewing letter pairs. And then once I was done with that, I of course grinded solves to try and get used to 3-style once again. At this competition, I did really well in round 1 with a 45 single and a 49 mean. I was stoked to have gotten a mean, especially after having such a poor success rate at my previous competitions. Melbourne Summer 2022 was only 2 weeks after this competition. I set myself the goal of doing 1,000 3-blind solves in these 2 weeks. In order to make sure I improved as much as possible, I decided to start one passing. One passing is when you don't review the memorization at all, which as you could imagine is a pretty big jump from reviewing multiple times, and it is very difficult. It is a massive time save though, and it is a large part of what separates people who average over 25 and people who average 15. Throughout these 1,000 solves, I had to battle through countless DNFs, but by the end, I was getting lots of sub-30s. I was extremely happy with how much I had improved in just 2 weeks, and I was ready for Melbourne Summer. At this competition, I did really well. I managed to get a 23 in round 2, which I was super pleased with, and it even beat Jack Kai in that round, who was the previous world record holder. In finals, I got a 26, which wasn't good enough to podium, but I was still incredibly pleased with it. Additionally, I met lots of other blindfolded solvers at this comp, who I continued to talk to after the competition, which was extremely motivating. After this competition, I knew it was time to learn something new. I decided to learn the biggest ALG set that I had ever tried to learn: floating. Full floating saves half an algorithm on average per solve. In my opinion, it's the most important thing to learn after basic 3-star. Although it involved learning around 1,500 new commutators, it only took 2 months because commutators are intuitive and very easy to learn. Once I knew floating, I once again grinded solves to get comfortable with the new thing that I had learnt and to improve my memo. By my next competition in March, I was averaging low 20s. I managed to get a 22 mean, which I was really happy with, although the solves clearly had lots of room for improvement. After continuing to grind solves while trying to get memo to be as fast as possible, I managed to get a 17 single at another competition in June. I was improving fast and had already surpassed what I was averaging before I broke my fingers. Then, I decided to once again learn a large ALG set. I decided to learn LTCT, which is another large ALG set that is quite helpful in blindfolded solving. It solves both parity and a twisted corner in one fast algorithm, which on average saves about 0.2 algorithms per solve. This is absolutely huge at a high level. With both floating and LTCT under my belt, I continued to grind like crazy in order to get comfortable with them before Abbotsford Blind Challenge in July. The first round of this competition wasn't anything special, but I nonetheless made it to the finals. And in the finals, something completely unexpected happened. The first solve was pretty average, it was an 18, The second solve, I did a really cool thing called floating LTCT. It combines both floating and LTCT, which were two large ALK sets that I had learnt just before this competition. I unfortunately hadn't had much time to practice this though, and so I unfortunately +2 the solve, but it was still a 19.33 in the end. I couldn't believe it. I got OCR single with a 15.78, and then it also ended up being an OCR average of 17.84. This really motivated me. Just a few weeks after this, Australian Nationals was on. I practiced a heap more in order to be ready for this competition, and it once again paid off. On the first solve of the first round, I managed to get a 14.62 Oceanic record single. The scramble was only slightly better than average, and I had just somehow gotten really fast memo and then pretty solid execution. This was only 0.11 seconds behind the world record at the time. For finals, I was smack bang in the middle of an elevated stage that had a large crowd of people watching. This was by far the most nervous I had been for a competition so far, so how would I hold up under all the pressure? I was able to smash out a 15 on the first and a 17 on the second, which meant that I again had a shot at the Oceanic record mean. I needed just an 18.91, but would I crumble under nerves just like I did in round 1? I smashed out a 16.11 on the last solve that had sub 7 memo and over 10 TPS. I was beyond thrilled with this mean. In my first major competition finals, I was able to smash out a mid 16 mean on average scrambles, but this was just a fraction of the pressure and nerve I would have to go through compared with what was coming. Oceanic Championships 2022. This would be more than double the size and the pressure of nationals. There was media everywhere, more than 1,000 people, a live stream for people all over the world. Not to mention that I would be competing alongside the best blinders in Oceania, including Jack Kai, Michael Tripodi and Tam Kwan. The pressure was on. I qualified to round 2 with a 15 single. However, the second round was nearly completely disastrous. I DNF'd the first 2 solves. If I didn't get this last solve, then I wouldn't even be able to compete for a shot at winning the title of Oceanic Champion. I slowly lifted the blindfold to reveal a solved cube and I was so happy. Then, it was time for finals. The most important solves of my whole blindfolded solving journey to date. Being the favourite to win added even more nerves on top of the huge crowd and the possible title of Oceanic Champion. Hundreds of hours of effort had been put in just for these 3 solves, but I just had to shove my nerves to the side and do what I had done thousands and thousands of times before. I did it! I had broken the Oceanic record, this time of 14.26, basically guaranteed the win, and it was also an Oceanic record. I was overcome with joy. The next 2 solves weren't great, and so I narrowly missed the Oceanic record mean, but I was still so stoked. At the start of the year, I was averaging 50 seconds, being extremely happy with a 49 mean at a local competition. By the end of the year, I had gotten a 14.26 second Oceanic record single that was second in the world during Oceanic Championships finals. After sharing my journey, I hope you have found it to be motivating and inspiring for your own cubing journey. It isn't always easy, but I'm sure that with enough dedication and effective practice, you can achieve your cubing goals as well. I would also like to thank all of the people who have made this journey possible. This includes other blinders that were constantly helping me to improve my solving, other competitors that have motivated and encouraged me to get faster, many delegates and volunteers that help make competitions even possible, people who have supported financially to help me to get to more competitions, you guys for watching these videos, and of course Daily Puzzles. Throughout my whole cubing journey, I've been buying cubes from Daily Puzzles due to their fantastic prices and customer service, and now I'm sponsored by them. I look forward to working with Daily Puzzles to continue to grow the cubing community. If you guys do want to pick up some cubes, doing so from Daily Puzzles using discount code SWIFTCUBING will get you a 5% discount off of their already great prices. And make sure to follow Ola's advice.
Just use the ones that don't start with T.
I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful. Hopefully you guys can follow similar principles and can see great improvement as well. Let me know how it goes. See ya!